reframe our understanding of the term. So, slide 2. Thank you. Servant, person who's employed in another person's house, doing jobs such as cooking and cleaning, or someone working for the public, such as public servant like an MP, a devoted and helpful follower or supporter. So that primary definition is a bit outdated, certainly in the UK. Maybe au pairs or live-in housekeepers in unscrupulous homes are perhaps thought of and treated as servants, but I hope not. But the verb to serve is still commonly used across many sectors, including the church. And to be served is to have other people do things for you. In slide 3, in Mark 10:45, Jesus said, "The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." So Jesus said he didn't come so that we could do things for him. He came into the world to minister to us. He also said in John 15:15, "I no longer call you servants, because a servant doesn't know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends. For everything I've learned from my Father, I have made known to you." So when we follow Jesus, we're not servants, but we do serve. So we would call ourselves charismatic evangelicals. Our tradition or our expression of Christianity is known to be active. This is unlike some of the other expressions or traditions in Christianity. In next slide, please, Linda. Tony Horsfall, in his books, The Call to Intimacy and Rhythms of Grace, which basically are Rhythms of Grace seems to be a later edition of the first one. The first one's kind of booklety. It's the same material, just a later edition, perhaps more in it. Very good, really good. And he's our local friend, isn't he, Tony? And he helpfully explains in this book why this is the case, why we are sort of an active expression of Christianity. And it's our kind of theological backstory laid out in a short critique of contemporary spirituality. So firstly, he describes how as Christians we are innately spiritual, and how this spirituality, even today, more so today perhaps, is often pursued and expressed in other faiths or in arts or nature or whatever. People are searching. We are spiritual people, but they don't necessarily find it in the established church. He describes evangelicalism and, moreover, charismatic evangelicalism, and it's the expression of faith that it's most centered around activity out of all the different sort of denominations and what have you. We're the ones that are the most active. And he points out that all the Christian expressions have strengths and they have weaknesses, and believes that our weakness, often due to being busy and doing good stuff and activities that we undertake to reach people for Christ, can actually sometimes be a lack of depth in our own relationship with Jesus. We don't always develop those really solid spiritual disciplines that are required to sustain us, and we can also fail to ensure good discipleship habits in our new converts. So it's a bit like building a house on sand. Something comes along and the solidness isn't there. And I know a lot of people wobbled during lockdown because that familiarity and that being able to come together and lean on each other, that was gone. We were very much down to our own resources, weren't we, for maintaining our faith. So the other thing is we can be a Christian for decades, not actually change. It says in the Bible that we will change from glory to glory, we'll become more like Christ. But it's quite possible for someone to be a Christian for decades and literally not change at all, because there isn't that time for God to really break in and speak to us about those areas of our life that perhaps need a bit of attention. We perhaps struggle just to spend time in silence with Jesus or read our Bible on a regular basis, and we know that people have said to us that they struggle to read the Bible. So this isn't a criticism, it's an observation. So our fundamental theology, it encourages to value commitment and service to God, which is a good thing. And it's along with that emphasis on praise and worship and baptism in the Holy Spirit, really important, the spiritual gifts, power evangelism, and spiritual warfare. some of these evangelical characteristics, they're not necessarily expressed or valued by quite genuine Christians from other expressions of the faith. And equally, we don't always express or value characteristics expressed in theirs. So I think we've got a lot to learn from our other Christian brothers and sisters. Slide 6, please, Linda. Here we go. This is Tony's sort of like theories. So evangelicals, they tend to stress God's involvement in the world rather than his transcendence and mystery. And that transcendence mystery, that's something that the kind of contemplatives go after. And it's like God is not simply to be imitated in his holiness, but in his activity. And we also have a sense of moral obligation to active service. And you look at the words, that song, Love So Amazing, So Divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. The kind of messages, our underlying theology comes through the songs that we sing, and the hymns that we sing, and the teaching, and the historical kind of teachers that started the evangelical movement. So there's that sense that we owe something. And also we have an innate sense of urgency. People are lost and going to hell, so we must pursue them, persuade them for Christ. And it can be quite a sort of a frenetic, this is what we must do. And even though we've had this message for probably a couple of decades now about grace, it's not about us, it's about God in us. I think we still try and do a lot of stuff in our own strength, which doesn't really work. It might do for a time. So, slide 7. The charismatic influence, when that sort of joined hands or joined forces with the evangelical influence, then you've really got it big. So it's like dream big, everything is possible. The gospel for every person and the church for every people by the year 2000. I remember that being bandied about over the years, and everyone got really excited, and it all became about church growth and numbers and bigger buildings, and then we had the Toronto Blessing, and that fresh wave of anointed power, basically to turbocharge our own efforts as we partnered with God. So this, can I have the, is it 7? Oh yeah, is it 7? Let's let 7, please, Linda, thanks. So this kind of activism and dynamism is our bedrock, if you like. And Tony concludes that while the combination of the evangelical emphasis on the Word of God, which is all important, and the charismatic emphasis on the Spirit of God, which is all important, should, in theory, create a really balanced and powerful expression of the Christian faith. So my first question to you is that true? Have we got the balance right? What do you think? Just open questions, immediate thoughts. Is that a yes? Oh, no, I don't think we're too bad at all. Are there some things we can learn from the other traditions? Is there something we can do more? Okay. That's a very good question. Welcome. Lovely to see you. I'm Julia, by the way. I should have introduced myself. Sorry. Tensing everybody knows everybody. Are you from around here? Do you live here? Sorry, I'm just going to interview you now.
6 months here.
Right. Okay.
But I've been going around the churches.
Oh, okay.
I've been meaning to come here for months, actually.
Right. Nice to see you. You missed the fire drill. Best bit.
I saw you all outside.
Oh, did you? Well done. Yeah, that is a really good question. Are we seeing new people come in? Occasionally. But not crowds, not the big church streams that perhaps we had 20 years ago. And that's okay. It's seasons, isn't it? I think it's okay to reflect and think, this is where we were, this is where we are, where are we going? What's God doing now? What's he wanting of us? What have we learned over the last, we've been going for about 40 years, haven't we? What have we learned? Can we do anything better? Okay. Yeah.
Lots of people coming to our groups.
Yeah.
Looking at
Yeah.
this club, that club.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't seem to see very many of them. Some do, but not very many of them fully joining the church.
No. Yeah. And that's, sorry. Mhm.
find it very alien. As Stu says, though, we are getting a lot of people back. In fact,
Mhm.
a number of people that I now see outside of priesthood
Yeah.
as a result of priesthood.
Mm.
There is things happening.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not seeing it here.
Yeah. And that can be disappointing, can't it? But I think it's good to think or ask God, what's happening? What do we do? Because, I say, we've been going for 40 years. We were a lot bigger in those earlier days, lots of families. That's okay, Jenny. Just chill, don't worry. I'll let you switch off. That moment, that sinking feeling. It's fine. Yeah, I mean, over the years, how many people have we encountered through our special services, through our toddler groups, through our, I don't know, shows that we put on, Alpha, so many groups, so many events over the years, and, you know, even Knit and Natter, things, even that's been going about 10 years or something now. We don't see the fruit, do we? And that can be disappointing. So, yeah.
I once read, I can't remember what it was, but people that we see coming through, it's not an instant decision.
Mm.
And it's a number of years, and it was something like about 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
after, you know, people come dip in and out
Yeah.
before they actually
Mhm.
suddenly decide to come.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not an instant thing. You've got to just
Yeah.
keep doing these things to bring people.
Yeah. But as you were saying about people don't relate to sort of traditional churches these days, so there's more of a call for us to be being Jesus in our communities, isn't it? In our families, that's much more important that people, you know, if we're Jesus' friends, we're reflecting him, then if we're doing our loving and our serving and our supporting amongst our friends, our families, our work colleagues, our school friends, our neighbours, that's much more important because that's the ongoing, that's the relational thing, isn't it? That's where you're building foundations. And so, in a sense, coming down here on a Sunday or whatever, whenever it is. Reg?
I don't want to sound negative,
Yeah,
but Sunday is a very busy time.
it is a busy time.
Some people who've got young families now
Mm-hmm.
haven't got time.
Mm.
And it's a shame, really. Like we just said, you have to be a good neighbour.
Mm.
You have to be a good friend. You're there for them when they need you.
Yeah,
And that is,
constant.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Reg.
Can I just share something that happened to me last week?
Yeah, go on.
It really links in with this. On a Friday, before we were going on holiday, and the day before I'd been reading a book about forgiveness actually, and I'd been dealing with an issue that I'd had for quite a long time. So I did that Thursday night. Friday morning, got up and went saw my dad had to go on so he could go on holiday. And while I was on the drive with my dad, the postman came along. And I know the postman from when we were doing our coffees on the road, because he always used to come on.
All right.
So we got to know him a little bit. So he came along and I said, well, how are you? Oh, I'm not good. And he was going through a difficult divorce. So I spent about half an hour talking through things with him. And subsequently, I've seen him 3 times since, and we've talked an awful lot.
Mm.
Well, then I went home, thought, right, I'm packed now. And then my phone pinged, and I've got an extra shot, so I need to maybe say I had to go to the post office. But the postman and I see him every day because of my shop. So we know each other well, and we talk about our faiths all the time to each other. But I'd fallen out with him a few weeks before because he'd been trying to take advantage of a lady that comes here, actually, and I told him off. So I went that day, after seeing the postman, and he sent, and we got chatting again, and suddenly the doors were open again, and we were talking.
Yeah.
And I took a look for it. And I
Yeah.
read about something else the night before.
Excellent. Thank you, Rachel. And I think I was going to talk about Jesus and what he did. You know, he never went out and talked to people, ministered to people, whatever, shared with people, without sort of slipping off in the early hours in the morning and spending time with his father, didn't he? So he was resourced and equipped and ready. And it's being able, you prayed about it the night before, and you were then ready to go out and serve those people, and it was multiplied. So thank you, Rachel. Jane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, like our prayer life, whether we go to some group, I go to U3A, and I do Restore here, Kathy, and all sorts of things. But whatever it is, our prayer level has to undergird it.
Mm.
Because otherwise, you know, it's great, and you know, we have good conversations. I do with other friends from dance and UPA and things, and it's happening out there,
Mm.
for sure. But it's bringing these people to God and listening to what He's saying, so that you take the bold step of speaking about Jesus or whatever it is
Mhm.
into their situation, and that you're ready because you know what God's doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely key.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's easy to not do that. Really easy, because we're all busy.
You're not geared up then.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask, are there any busy people here? Good question. Yeah, I think that's really, I guess that's what I'm getting at, Jane, that it's having those things, but it's so easy to, because of whatever our home circumstances are at the moment, to get up and there's something happens and you don't have time to pray, and it doesn't have to be first thing in the morning, but it's so easy to get into bed and think, I've not prayed, I've not looked at my Bible today, it goes, and so it's, my thing today is, can we relook at that, you know, as a body, as a family, and start to encourage each other and find new ways of going deeper.
It's part of the discipline.
It is.
It's a spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
And that's a dirty word these days, unfortunately, but it's actually true.
Yeah.
And if we're in those areas and we're helping each other, and new Christians are bringing, you know, who do come to be brought through into those areas,
Mm-hmm.
you know, then you're in business, aren't you?
Yeah. So, I'll move on. I was going to look at sort of some of our motivations for serving, and it can be all different things. Just being really nice people. Some people like being busy and active and in the thick of things. Some people feel like if they don't do it, no one else will, or perhaps they're better at doing it. There's a whole bunch of reasons for doing those things, but whatever, we do them, don't we? We just get on and we're busy and busy, busy. And it's rare that we get the chance to stop and think, should I actually be doing this? Is this right? Is this, you know, things run for a season, don't they? And sometimes we have to be really brave and think, is this the end of a season? Are we just running ourselves dry? So it's, all I'm saying is be open to those things, open to those thoughts, open to those reflections. We talked after lockdown about always working or serving from a place of rest, and we'd all nod our heads and go, perfect, wisdom. But actually, it can be really hard, can't it? Because it means organising your day so that you can have that time spent with Jesus, reading Bible, praying, to be able to be fueled to go out and be Jesus to other people. But it's a hard one, because we're saying, you know, only serve out of a place of rest, but actually we really need volunteers for this, this, and this. And it's like trying to square a circle. And that's a difficult thing. It's difficult things for leaders, and it's a difficult thing for all of you, because the last thing we want is to be making people feel like they've got to do something, which is why I said I'm not here to make you do anything else. So we've touched on Jesus and how he went out every morning, or, you know, at morning and at night, and he spent time with his Father, and he would do that alone, but he would also take his disciples with him. So it's good if you've got a friend that you can do stuff with, just spend some time learning to do this kind of more contemplative thing. Meditating, praying, can you pray it? Can you worship it in different ways? Just being open really to what God is saying, because I feel like we're in a new season now. The thing I was thinking of, we've been very loyal and faithful church over the years, and we've all worked our socks off. And I would say that God was pleased with us. And let's get ready for this next season. Let's listen. Let's not just go into autopilot and carry on doing the things we've always done, because we're not the same people. A lot of us are older. We've got complex family situations going on. We don't have the same energy that we've had in the past. So those expectations that perhaps we've had in the past of what we can do, we need to revisit those and be more realistic and see what God's doing. Ooh.
Yeah, I was thinking, people as they get older, they have less energy, but when they retire, they have a lot more time.
Yeah,
What a great,
only in theory. Yeah, this is what we all thought about 20 years ago. And the reality is, in today's society, there's a lot of people who have retired that are now looking after their grandchildren and looking after elderly parents, etc. And some are still working. And so that black and white picture that we perhaps had 20 years ago is very different today. It's a very different society. And so it's having to adapt to those. And those are the things I think we really thought 20 odd years ago. It was like, it's going to be great when everyone retires. We're going to be able to do so many things, do things. Actually, no, in reality, it's not. And you've got a reduced energy. You've got manpower. My husband, he said he can't lift the PA anymore. He just can't do it. It's too heavy. So there are practicalities and things to an older congregation. And we can't just leave it down to the handful of our lovely younger people. I think we're still vital to the kingdom. I believe God loves the Oaks very much, and he still calls us his friend. But we've just got to work our way through this new season, this time. What is he wanting us to do? How is he wanting us to do it? How do we square that circle of, continuing outreach without draining people? I mean, summer holidays, nightmare. In fact, summer holidays go from March to October. And so we're really stretched at times with the things that we do. So it's revisiting and rethinking those things, reflecting on those things. So the thing I thought was, I believe God wants more of us, not more from us at this time. So how can we do that? How can we give ourselves time for God to speak and re-energize us and re-envision us for this new period? So this isn't a call for action, but a call for reflection. And, we think that God calls us to love the Lord our God with all our heart, everything we've got, and our neighbours as ourselves. And they're kind of the two primary commandments. That's all we've got to do. We've just got to love our neighbours, whoever our neighbour might be. And I think if we can get ourselves in that place of connection with God, a bit like, remember Brother Lawrence and his practicing the presence of God, and he would be, even when he was peeling the potatoes, he'd be thinking about God, and it's actually quite hard, but I think with practice you can develop those skills of just kind of connecting in with God, even just for a minute, and then coming back. The more we're in that kind of vertical connection, the more our outflow is anointed, powerful, loving, gracious, all the other things that we need, because God's just kind of flowing through us, which is exciting. There's a few books that we've been reading in Core Team and beyond, and the three particularly that I thought about this weekend was the one from Francis Chan, who I've told you his story before, and John Mark Comer. I've got his book here, which I'll wave at you, and Pete Gregg. He's the guy that set up 24/7 prayer ministries. And, oopsie, don't worry, it's all right, fine. They've all been sterling Christian leaders who have just got to a point of thinking, there's got to be more than this, more than what they're experiencing. They were dry, they were disappointed, they were worn out. The case of Francis Chan. He was in America, and he had a mega church, and he thought, I might be getting more people coming week in and week out, but it's costing us more to provide more and more activities for them, and childcare and staff and ministry and car parking spaces, and he wasn't seeing people's lives change. He was seeing people coming on a Sunday, particularly if he was speaking or was a big doofy worship band on or something. He wasn't seeing lives being changed, so he got completely disillusioned and walked away from it entirely. And then after a stint in Asia, the Chinese church, he came back and he's begun again, but like a tiny house church movement, and they only go to 12, but it's very intentional on discipleship. But John Mark Comer, he's a really, really good teacher. He's got a lot to say. And he, again, was a senior pastor in a big church in the States and had a breakdown, really, burnout from just running around doing multiple services and trying to do everything. And he eventually wrote this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And there's a lot of us that have read it, and it is just so refreshing. He's very easy to read. But he has revisited the disciplines and things like the Sabbath. He talks about every Friday. He had teenage children at the time, and then every Friday evening, that would be their Sabbath. So they'd all chuck their devices in a box for the 24 hours. And they'd create a really lovely meal. It reminded me a bit like Christmas Day, except they'd have a massive chocolate brownie that they'd all dig into. So they'd have a lovely meal together and share time together and have a laugh. And then the next day, they'd go for a walk, or they'd visit friends, or they'd read books. So he said it's not about sitting, listening to worship music for 24 hours. It's about just stopping. There's no browsing, no shopping, no internet browsing, all that stuff. Just giving your body and your mind and your spirit some time to decompress. And they got to the point where they were really looking forward to Fridays every week, because that was then the start of their week, and they were going into the week refreshed. And it just sounded so lovely. But I found myself thinking, I don't think I could put my phone down for 24 hours. Shame. We're so tied into those things, and it takes an effort, and I still want to try it, but it takes an effort to reposition your life to do the things that are really good for us. So that was just a little example, but I can really recommend that. It's very good. And he talks about solitude, he talks about silence, sort of meditation type things. And there's a John Ortberg book, very similar, very easy to read. I've only scanned that, so I can't give you a full thing, but these guys, they've all been through it and just thought, I just can't. Or there's just got to be more, there's got to be a different way. And they've come back to this redefining the disciplines and starting to get Jesus deeper into their lives. So that's really what I wanted to encourage today, that we can chat together, we can reflect together. I've got a few questions for you to chat over on your tables. So as I said, it's not a nag, it's not a judgment call or anything. It's just saying, as a family, can we help each other do better in these things? Because I know I could certainly do with doing better. I'm very, very easily distracted. You might have guessed. But I want to know Jesus more, and I want those conversations that Rachel's having as a natural outpouring of my time that I spent with God in the morning. So I'm going to bring up some questions that you can chat through. I've also got, have you got slide 8 there, Linda, please? This is the message version of Take Your Burdens Off, Lean on Me, which I think is really lovely. If there's anyone out here thinking, well, I'm not tired or worn out, tell me what you're on, because I'd like a bit. But it's Jesus' intention for us to be chilled and knowing that we're loved and sharing that love. And you probably know I'm a bit of a Chosen fan. And I just look at that lovely relationship that they portray with Jesus and his disciples, how they're wandering along the road chatting, and then they're sitting and eating together, and he's teaching. And it's just so natural and relaxed, unforced. And I think that's something that I really want to know more of. So, our discussion questions are, not hard, not going to stretch your brain, but you can sit and chat through them now, and you can carry on thinking about them as we go through the week. And yeah, I've got books here if you want to have a quick look through, or if you want to chat to me about them. The other book I didn't mention, it was the Pete Greig one. His wife had a sort of catastrophic illness shortly after the birth of the second baby, and he hit a wall. And he was a senior leader, and he'd set up this 24/7 prayer movement, which was phenomenally successful. But yeah, in that moment of crisis, he couldn't go to his own church, he couldn't face it, and he has gone into this, I need to go deeper, I need to put my foundations in deeper. And so that's what I'm encouraging, suggesting, questioning at the moment. So I'm going to leave you for 3 minutes to chat through those questions, and then we'll round off shortly. Thank you.